Good morning. It is Tuesday, December 27th. I'm Abby Huntsman in for Ainsley Earhart this morning. Well, he campaigned hard for Hillary Clinton and she lost, but President Obama insists he could have beaten President Trump.
Again, and articulated it, I think I could have mobilized a majority of the American people to rally behind it.
This morning, the president-elect is firing back.
Wow. Tensions escalating also between the U.S. and what's supposed to be its greatest Mideast ally, as Israel doubles down on claims that President Obama was behind that devastating UN resolution.
We have evidence. It's very clear that the U.S. orchestrated that.
What was just revealed about that proof?
Wow. And you've seen, I'll try it again. You've seen the Hooters girls, but soon you'll be seeing these bombshell girls, the military-themed concept coming to a city right near you.
Oh boy.
As you reflect on that, let me remind you our slogan, mornings are better with friends.
When you dance, 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 feel good creeping up on you. So just dance, dance, dance. Come on, all those things I shouldn't do, but you dance, dance, dance.
If you look closely, the only way to get in here is to have one of our passes. It's ironclad, it's clear, and I get the sense that New York still feels like it's a holiday.
This is really how you're starting, huh? You have to have a pass to get in that building.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to say.
It depends on where you go in New York City. Because if you're in Times Square area, it is mayhem.
You can't move.
It is chaos.
Right.
And if you go in other parts, it's like desolate. No one's even there, which is kind of nice. You never see the city like that.
I was doing Tucker's show last night. People were banging on the windows, literally. You know, they're just like, they want to do something. They're like showing their kids, hey, there's some random guy in the circus over there.
Well, you know, the thing is, that's when when tourism increases in New York City, we get more and more fans. Because it's people outside New York who really support
And they
Fox.
see Ed Henry and they're like,
They're like, this is amazing.
I'd
This
like
is
to touch
amazing.
him. And instead, I'd like to go through 9 inches of glass first.
All right, so there was some news that came out yesterday in the political world where President Obama gave an interview with David Axelrod, and he was asked, could he have beaten Donald Trump in this past election? And
he can't help himself in this situation.
He
cannot help himself.
He said he could. Here's what he said.
I am confident in this vision because I'm confident that if I had run again and articulated it, I think I could have mobilized a majority of the American people to rally behind it.
Wait, you know, one of my first reactions? So Russia was not the biggest factor in the election? Because he's saying, like, if I had mobilized this majority, that whole Russia thing that we've said for the last month was really the big reason why Hillary Clinton lost? No. He's now admitting, first of all, Hillary Clinton was a bad candidate, despite everything he said for so long, and that he thinks he's better than she is, number one. And number two, he thinks he could beat Donald Trump, which some people are, you know, yes, his President Obama's approval ratings have inched up, but people get tired of you after 2 terms. And also there's this tradition. Get off the stage. Get off the stage.
He has lost 1,030 seats in the state legislature, in the House and the Senate since he took over, beginning in 2010 when people voted for other people than him. Also, when you go out and people mock and the late night hosts focus on Donald Trump's confidence and they say, oh my goodness, there's no difference. It's all in delivery. He's smoother. He's more articulate. He's more refined. But Barack Obama is the same thing as Donald Trump. He has an inability to admit any of his flaws, inability to say any of his policies are incorrect. It's all in how they are digested and communicated. It's the problem. It's not the policies. The perfect example is what's happening, and we'll talk about it in detail shortly, with Israel. You do this thing that's devastating to the Democratic Party. You just basically took our most loyal Middle East ally and threw him in the street, and then told Democrats to deal with it. We had Congressman Sherman on the couch yesterday,
Democrat,
in the seats yesterday in the living room, and he says, I'm against this. Senator Schumer is against it. But Barack Obama says it, leaves the stage, and leaves Democrats to deal with that legacy.
That might be one of the smartest things you've ever said, because that is so true. And not many people, including the mainstream media, they never pick up on that.
Wait, what was the smartest thing you said?
Between the lines of how important delivery is, but when you look past that, how similar the politicians are at the end of the day. So if you remember, back in September, President Obama gave a speech saying that it would be an insult to him, it would be an insult to his presidency if blacks and Hispanics did not come out in the numbers
he screamed
for Hillary
He looked
Clinton.
angry in his
have that sound.
We do have that sound.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I will consider it a personal insult an insult to my legacy if this community lets down its guard and fails to activate itself in this election.
Well, guess what happened?
Yeah.
They did not come out in the numbers for
Right.
Hillary Clinton. Here he's now saying if he were in the race this past go-around, he could have beaten
If only
Donald
I had been there, if only I was on the ballot, if only my coalition had mobilized. Wait a second. But you did say basically my name's not on the ballot, but my legacy's on the line, and people didn't turn out.
What I also found very disturbing for me is when I originally heard this, he brings up race again in this way. If we can't find a way to break through what is a complicated history in the South and start winning races there and winning back Southern white voters without betraying our commitment to civil rights and diversity. So saying that we can't get over the South because the South is not over what their history is, maybe back to the Civil War.
Right.
The Democrats did own the South. They lost the South, and now the Republicans are holding on to the
And
South through values, work ethic, and different things. It's the bathroom situation. It's jamming Obamacare down people's throats. It's not because the South doesn't like black people.
But also, Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton are not listening to someone very important in the Democratic Party, Bill Clinton, who's been saying, don't dismiss this whole Southern white voter thing. They really have concerns, and they're focused on jobs, not race.
Not race.
And nobody will listen to Bill Clinton. It's Bill Clinton saying it.
Right, and you mentioned earlier there was all this talk after the election of Russia is to blame for this. You know, I've gone around to the diners around the country and talked to a lot of the voters, many of them that had been Democrats their entire life, like in Scranton, Pennsylvania. And I asked them, why did you switch your vote this time? And the reason was very simple. Two big issues for them: immigration, President-elect Donald Trump running on stricter laws for immigration, also Obamacare. Those are both big things that President Obama's hoping will be his legacy.
So I was very curious to see if Donald Trump, who's been lauding the fact that he and the current president are getting along great and he's been a great advisor to him, what would he do with that statement? And here's what he said, relatively measured. President Obama said that he thinks he would have won against me. He should say that. But I say, no way, exclamation point. Jobs leaving, ISIS, Obamacare, etc.
You're right. That's pretty measured. He's not dumping on President Obama.
He doesn't want a war.
It's very smart politically. I think Donald Trump he's thanked both Barack and Michelle Obama. You've been kind to my family. I'm not going to look backwards. I'm looking forward. That's what he's supposed to be doing.
See how he
right
can
now.
do it, because President Obama's going across the street. He said on the Action Report on that podcast, I think, it was very interesting give and take between them, because he's been somewhat critical after he left the White House.
David Axelrod
has.
Yeah.
But he said in that Action Report that basically he says, I am going to be speaking out when things are not right, and there's no necessarily great speaker right now.
Yes, and it's a free country, and Barack Obama can do that as a former president, but that is breaking with recent tradition.
I was just going to say
George W. Bush got off the stage. Do you think that when Barack Obama, as a new president, was trying to shut down Gitmo, was trying to tear apart his approach to the war on terror, he wasn't going nuts down in Texas? Of course he was, but he said, I'm done. There's change happening. Let him have his
You know what? It's called statesmanship. What happened to that?
Right.
You let the next administration come in and do what they're going to do.
Remember, my successor, I owe my successor my silence, is what George Bush said. That's not going to happen here. Meanwhile, let's talk about the impact of the United Nations resolution against Israel building settlements in the West Bank. And that's to do that, Israel now doubling down, insisting the U.S. is behind the UN vote against the Israeli settlements.
It comes amid worries that the country could face serious economic backlash in those settlements, including maybe some sanctions by the European Union.
Yeah, Kristen Fisher is live for us in Washington, D.C. with the latest details that everyone is still talking about this morning. Kristen, what are you hearing?
Well, Abby, it's important to keep in mind that this is a non-binding resolution, meaning it has no teeth. Right now, it's all guidelines and recommendations, but that could change. Not only does this resolution demand that Israel stop all settlement activity in the West Bank, it also calls into question the legality of Jewish prayer at the Western Wall, because, according to this resolution, the Jewish quarter in the Old City of Jerusalem is quote-unquote occupied territory. Now, some of the other key concerns that Israelis have about this resolution are that it opens the door for potential boycotts of Israeli products that are produced in Jewish settlements in the West Bank. And if other nations don't boycott their products, then perhaps they'll simply label them as settlement products in an effort to curb sales. Another concern, that this resolution opens the door for lawsuits against Israeli officials at the ICC. That means government ministers and senior officers could be accused of war crimes under the Geneva Convention. And finally, this resolution could lead to the creation of mechanisms to monitor and report Israeli actions. So just because this resolution doesn't have any teeth, it's still a huge symbolic blow for the Israeli people, and it could certainly have real-life ramifications down the road.
And by the way,
Abby and Brian.
Thanks so much, Kristen. We'll talk to you later. Thank you. Also, it's important, the New York Times' first story is Israel not only is not backing down, they're beginning construction on 600 of the 5,480 new settlements in the area. So game on. Meanwhile, Israel's ambassador to the United States is promising to deliver proof that President Obama was behind the whole thing. He said this a couple of times yesterday. Here's Ambassador Ron Dermer. He says first he's going to send it to Trump, and then he's going to tell everybody.
We have that evidence, and as I said earlier, we're going to present it to the new administration, and if they choose to share it with the American people, that'll be their choice. But we have evidence. What David said is only part of what we have, and it's very clear that the U.S. orchestrated that.
Well, what's significant is that the White House has been downplaying this, sort of like, oh, it wasn't us, it was these other countries.
It was Senegal and Venezuela.
Yeah, and New Zealand. And the other part of that, well, we're not going to make it public. We're going to give it to the new Trump administration.
See what they want to do with it.
It's probably on Twitter in 10 minutes. What do you think? I mean, it's not like Donald Trump's going to sit on this information.
It's true. So the UN was put in place after World War II in 1945, and there have been questions from both sides of the political aisle over the years of the importance and do we really need this in place? What do they actually do at the end of the day? Charles Krauthammer was on last night.
He's got an idea.
And he's always so thoughtful about these. He does. He's got a very interesting idea of what we should do with the UN. Here's what he said.
It is an organization that exacerbates tensions. It does not assuage them. It was born in hope. The end of the Second World War, it turned out to be a disaster. Any move to minimize our support for it, any move to get it out of the U.S. Imagine if headquarters were in Zimbabwe. The amount of weight and coverage it would get would be zero. I think that's good real estate in downtown New York City, and Trump ought to find a way to put his name on it and turn it into condos.
The UN condos?
Well, he said
Trump
yesterday they just get together and hang out, and he says it's a shame, sad. They don't really get anything done down there. So I have to say,
I think, doesn't Donald Trump already have a building like across from the UN? I seem to remember Derek Jeter living there. I don't know. It's a random Yankees fact that I have.
I think he might,
but he might be right about that.
But yeah, he's smart enough to know I'm going to live in New York for a little while, but I'm going to keep my residence in Florida because they have no state tax.
Yeah, this is Donald
You're
Trump.
exactly
No,
right.
that's Derek Jeter.
Oh, that's Derek Jeter. Yeah, but Donald Trump might be doing that
Right.
too, right?
By the way, if we toss to Heather now, she's also tax-free.
I wish.
Yeah.
Great.
Right.
Welcome back, Heather. How you doing?
Great to see you
Merry
guys. Hope you
Christmas.
all had a wonderful, wonderful Christmas. Good morning to all of you. Let's start right now with a Fox News alert. There is a manhunt that is intensifying at this hour for the last of 6 inmates who broke out of jail by using a leaky toilet. Police in eastern Tennessee now warning that convicted felon David Frazier, seen right here, is considered the most dangerous of that bunch. The group escaping by ripping a toilet off the wall. It had rusty bolts, and then they kicked down a door. Memorials growing this morning for George Michael as mystery surrounds his sudden and shocking death. The music legend behind dozens of 80s and 90s mega hits.
Wake me up.
We have to stop ISIS. We have to knock them out. Have no choice. Have to knock them out. We'll do that.
All right, President-elect Trump vowing to take down ISIS, as you know, he said it many times when he takes office. But ISIS is not the only terror threat out there, sadly. Here to map it out even more is Ryan Morrow. You know him. He's a national security analyst at Clarion Project. Ryan, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, and we know that Donald Trump watches the show. So, Donald, it's more than ISIS, Mr. President-elect. For example, Muslim Brotherhood.
Right, it seems very likely that President Trump is going to designate the Muslim Brotherhood as a foreign terrorist organization. These are some of the Brotherhood's fronts in the United States. They may not violently retaliate, but if there's a political crisis because they're getting cracked down upon, you don't know exactly what's going to happen.
Wait a second.
Sure.
But before we do this, these are different camps in the U.S.?
Well, these are different front organizations for the Muslim Brotherhood
and
that
they
have a lot of
claim their
influence.
foundations.
Yes, they claim that they're nonprofits, but we know from the Justice Department that they are Muslim Brotherhood front organizations. The camps that you were referring to is this organization, Muslims of the Americas. They claim to have 22 of these enclaves around the United States. And according to our sources within the organization, they believe Donald Trump is going to crack down on them, have law enforcement raid them, and they see that as the fulfillment of end times prophecy.
One of the first things that George Bush did when he took on Al-Qaeda is try to look at their financing and maybe some of the other groups that might be getting financing from the U.S. He started cracking down through the Treasury. Can you start choking some of these organizations out through the Treasury?
Very possible, because they engage in a lot of criminal activity. We're talking about charter school scams. They used to have a 100-acre training camp in Colorado that was raided in 1992. So it can be done, and this group believes that Trump will do that. And so they're preparing for that. Number 3, Afghanistan. We don't hear too much about this, but there are 20 terrorist organizations operating in this area, and Pakistan's down here. The Afghan government only controls about 60% of this territory.
So right now we have 10,000 troops in Afghanistan. And with those 10,000 troops, Al-Qaeda is now back in there, and they're coming from Pakistan into Afghanistan, where they're feasting on our guys and also getting additional training to go out and disperse throughout the region.
Right, and so it's not just Al-Qaeda. Taliban controls about 10% of this country, but 20 different terrorist groups. So just like we talk about Iraq and Syria today, expect us to be talking about Afghanistan next year.
All right, so let's move on to this other map, and this is perhaps the most challenging.
Right, because the nuclear deal is a disaster, and I hope that Donald Trump scraps it. But coming with that is that there may be a mad dash towards nuclear weapons and a terrorist offensive by Iran. Now, a lot of people say, well, how does that impact us? Well, you have to look at the shipping lanes. So if you look at these two areas, very critical shipping lane, as well as right here. Your livelihood economically depends upon those being free, and Iran has the capability to strike at them. The Saudi oil fields in this area as well is also very critical to the world surviving economically.
Many people would say it's important to show strength and muscle early, because our ships have been buzzed, our helicopters have been, our ships have been taunted and harassed in that area, and we've done nothing to respond. What could Donald Trump do to send a message to Iran, who's very open to signals like the toppling of Saddam? They become more compliant when they feel threatened. What could he do early?
Even under the deal, we are allowed to sanction them for human rights violations and sponsorship of terrorism. We can sanction the hell out of them for that, and also support the Iranian people. I know he's criticized the strategy of regime change, but when it comes to the Iranian people, they deserve it.
Boeing and their secret elements to this deal, Boeing and company are doing deals with Iran. Now you have those deals are in place. They've gotten everything already. For us to blow up the agreement would be to Iran's advantage, because that means they could get all the sanctions lifted and they could start their nuclear program. So
I think the status quo is working very well for them. The last one, the number one threat is who benefits from ISIS collapsing if General Mattis beheads them? Is it Al-Qaeda coming back, or is it a new group that rises and says, we know where ISIS went wrong? Follow us.
Ryan Morrow, thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, and sadly, even though we're winning against ISIS, they're still there. All right, meanwhile, coming up straight ahead, what do a millionaire, a state lawmaker, and drug dealers have in common? They all got busted for using food stamps this year. Is it time to finally end that program? We'll debate it next. And you've seen the Hooters girls maybe too often, but soon you'll be seeing these bombshell girls, the military-themed concept, coming to a city near you.
And now some news by the numbers. First, $500. That's how much House Republicans want to fine Democrats if they stage another one of those gun control sit-ins on the House floor. Last summer, they did it for 25 hours. Next, 100. That's how many locations the Houston-based Bombshells restaurant and bar is aiming to open all across the country within the next 5 years. The military-themed restaurant features, yes, scantily clad waitresses and World War II-themed food and drinks. Finally, 1. Jackie Avancho's album sales skyrocketed too after she agreed to sing at President-elect Donald Trump's inauguration. Abby?
What you call karma. She is fabulous. Thank you, Ed. Well, food stamp fraud is at an all-time high, and some of the worst offenders this year have included a state lawmaker and a millionaire. This year, it is estimated $70 million of taxpayer money was wasted on food stamp fraud. So is it time to end the program altogether? Here to debate, 2008 Clinton campaign advisor and Fox News contributor Jamu Green and Republican New York Councilman Joe Borelli, who's fought against welfare fraud right here in the New York Assembly. Welcome to both of you. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, Joe, when we're talking about about these programs, communication is so important here, because when you read the headline, it's doing away with the programs that help the people that need it most. So what are you talking about? Help people understand this.
Right. The Republican Party can't be either in perception or in practice the party that is seen as throwing people to the curb and cutting off benefits when they really need it. That said, this program, the SNAP program, the reincarnation of the food stamp program, has been ripe with problems since almost its inception. Bob Dole said in 1977 that we have finally eliminated the greed and fed the need. And unfortunately, 40 years later, we still see the same problems with fraud, with abuse, and really just overspending on this particular program.
A lot of Democrats, Jimmy, though, are saying we just need more of this.
Well, we certainly have to have this conversation by looking at the facts. And the facts are that 45% of the recipients of SNAP programs are under the age of 18. 9% of them are over the age of 60. This is a program that keeps young people and elderly people out of poverty. This is also a program that, of course, as we look at any government program, there's going to be fraud. So how do we correct the problem
How do you do away with the
without
fraud?
throwing the baby out with the bathwater? Because this is something that lifts families who are on the brink of poverty, stops them from jumping into poverty. This also actually helps local economies. Food stamp benefits, for every $5 that is spent, $9 goes into the local economy. That's not just something that you can throw out. And when you look at what President Obama has done in the last 8 years, we've seen the greatest stalling out of economic inequality growth stopping under his programs. This is one of the reasons why. So,
but there has been a lot of abuse, a lot of people taking advantage of these programs, and that is the problem here. Who are these people, Joe?
Well, look, I mean, we're talking about 1% of spending on SNAP program is lost through fraud, just from what this latest report says. But Jimmy was right. There is a lot of good happening from this program. The problem is when House Republicans in 2014 proposed modest cuts, they got castigated by some of our Democratic colleagues in calling us heartless, and saying we're kicking people to the curb and that sort of thing. These are modest cuts. What other program in the federal government costs double what it did 8 years ago and quadruple what it cost 16 years ago, where we're not supposed to look at it with a scalpel and try to look for cuts? The Democratic Party wants taxpayers to put blinders on and just feel good that we're helping people. And we need to start looking at programs that have cost beyond what they're expected to cost, and look for reforms.
But even, Jimmy, you said earlier, there are problems that exist. There is fraud that is taking place. Is there another solution here? Is there a way for both sides to come together to make this as effective as possible?
look, I think there are going to be bad apples, like I said, in any program. So how do you weed those out? That should be the focus, because again, when you look at economic inequality, without food stamps, families are going to jump into poverty, and that is not something that we want to see reversed. You can't talk about this program without looking at the impact of the Great Recession. When you had income inequality growing under the Great Recession, what didn't grow was food insecurity, and that is because this program was pumped in with more money. That is so key to keeping kids and the elderly, local businesses thriving off of it. This is not something that I think Donald Trump is going to embrace in his administration, or House Republicans are going to embrace.
This is something that Speaker Paul Ryan has been very passionate about, getting this right. Joe, you know that. Is there anything that can be done, that will be done, you think, in the next 4 years?
Well, I think there will be. The House Committee on Agriculture published a report this year talking about a number of ways that they can use some real means-tested method and metrics to determine new criteria for people, whether it be income and asset calculation and various things. But Paul Ryan is right. He does not want people to fall off the welfare cliff, meaning we don't want people to come to this point where working and making an extra $10,000, $15,000 now comes at the expense of losing $30,000 in benefits. If you're a reasonable person or trying to do the right thing, you're not going to make those sacrifices when it's against your best interest. But to be clear, this is something that was not just expanded because poverty increased. Poverty has increased throughout the Obama administration in the Great Recession, but a lot of these changes were made policy-wise during the Bush administration in a 2002 and a 2008
It's
farm
going
bill.
to take both sides to fix it. We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you both for being here. Joe, Jamil, good to see you this morning. All right, coming up, we told you all this professor wanted for Christmas was a white genocide. He made that plea publicly. So how is this school reacting now? This morning, there is an update. And this may look like a normal photo of women sitting on a couch, but can you see what's wrong with it? The mistake is heating up a debate online. We'll have the answer. For the holidays and you got nothing else to do, you sit and you stare at these photos and you go crazy.
I saw plenty of legs. I mean, there were plenty of legs in that shot, right? I mean,
right.
Who's the girl with the bigger thighs? That's the girl.
Brian, this is not going to end well. Brian, this is not going to end well. Let's just
You can't say that.
Well, no, I'm just saying.
Yesterday,
I saw plenty of legs.
yesterday I heard you ask a woman how old she is.
That was off camera.
That was off camera.
No, it wasn't.
No, they just made it public. You're such a good friend. Ed.
I didn't say. I was saying who.
What I was saying is I was admiring how well she's doing in her career so young, and I thought to myself, how old are you? And Ed thought that was the wrong thing to ask.
You're not supposed to ask a lady her age and how big are her thighs.
You know what? We do have some extreme weather to get to. It's wreaking havoc on travelers trying to get home after the holidays. A blizzard bearing areas of the upper now of snow shutting down nearly every highway across North Dakota and western South Dakota and knocking out power to thousands of
The
people.
storm system now weakening, but still causing hundreds of flight delays at airports all around the country. Freezing rain drenching New England Monday with more to come today.
Meanwhile, in some parts of Florida, it's the warmest December on record. Senior meteorologist Janice Dean is here tracking all the weather. We gave you like 6 things to work with. You going to choose any?
6 things to, well, here's the thing. Brian in the hallway just complained about the fact that it was too warm in his office, and I told him...
No, too cold in my office.
Mine
Yet
is
it's
too,
warm
Brian.
outside. I said, why do I need air conditioning in December?
I'm not sure.
Who's paying for the Freon?
But facilities are the people to ask, not the weather person.
Yeah, good point.
Let's take a look at the map. Because all that warm air, we are setting records across Florida, has moved up to the northeast. It's 55 degrees right now in New York. I am sporting a springtime jacket, if you'd like to know. 25 in Chicago. That's where the colder temperatures are across the Midwest. You can see where the cold front is. All right, look at the temperature difference from this time yesterday. A 21-degree difference in New York City, 35-degree difference in Caribou, Maine, and you get the picture. We got some cold air moving in, but for now, enjoy it. There's going to be people wearing shorts here in New York City. I guarantee it. Weather delays, the FAA says all is well, but of course, it doesn't hurt to check with your air carrier if you are traveling today. We do have a storm system that's going to exit the East Coast, and then a new one moving into the West, and that's the one we're going to have to watch potentially for a winter storm Thursday and Friday here in the Northeast. I think it's going to be too warm for a big snowstorm, but again, we're going to have to watch it. And then the new storm in the West behind that could give us a little bit of inclement weather for the New Year's Eve festivities. So that's something we're going to have to watch over the next couple of days. Okay, Brian, I apologize for the coolness in your office. There's nothing I can do about it.
I just like Janice bringing out another conversation you had off the record.
Yeah, I know. It's unbelievable.
Off camera.
Brian,
I mean, why do I talk to anybody in the breaks?
Thanks,
Heather, now, don't reveal anything.
Hey, Heather, what did Brian say to you in the commercial
We
break?
talked about
That
Christmas.
he doesn't believe in Christmas.
No, I believe in Christmas. What is going on
Something
here?
about your mother-in-law is cooking?
That is not true. That is not true.
Good morning. Good morning to all you. Hope you're off to a great day. Speaking of Christmas and over the weekend, take a look at this, and it is a Fox News alert. Pandemonium and chaos at malls across the country, with people literally fighting for those after Christmas deals. Incidents reported at malls in 10 states on Monday alone. In New Jersey, shoppers stampeding the exits after they thought a gun was fired.
Wait. Oh, no.
A SWAT team swarming the mall, finding no signs of a gun. Fortunately, no one was seriously hurt in any of those incidents. Well, we have some terrifying video we have to show you. You really have to see it to believe it. And we should tell you, it does have a happy ending. Check this out. A massive truck running over a toddler. As a grandmother pushes his stroller on a crosswalk in China, that little boy almost trapped underneath, but the 3-year-old miraculously walks away with just scrapes and bruises. The truck driver got a fine that amounts to about $20 for failing to stop at a red light. How terrifying and lucky that little guy is. Well, a professor with a history of hating white people says he's not the problem. Instead, his critics of what he calls satirical remarks are the violent racists. George Cicarillo teaches at Drexel University, that's in Philadelphia. Over the weekend, he tweeted this, quote, "All I want for Christmas is white genocide." And that sparked a nationwide outrage, but now he says it was just a joke. Drexel calling the post very disturbing and has a meeting set up with the professor to address that. We'll follow that story and bring you the latest. Monday Night Football, a high-scoring affair. The Dallas Cowboys' offensive weapons all on display as they pummel the Detroit Lions 42-21. And our friend over at Fox 8 Cleveland weatherman Scott Sabol finally shaving off that beard because the Browns won. He vowed to keep it growing until they got a W. It took 109 days, but here he is, back to clean shaven. Scott, looking good, Scott. And those are your headlines. I'll see you soon. Speaking of football. Thanks. Right?
Yeah, speaking of football, let's talk about what happened Monday night and also the NFL playoff picture breaks down because we know in the end the Super Bowl will be a Fox Super Bowl. Here to break it down for us, Rich Big Daddy Salgado, Coastal Advisors, handles a lot of the insurance for a lot of the players in the league, and Mike Martocci is the CEO of Big Blue Travel because this game is all about the fans. We'll talk about you in a second, but real quick, Rich, when you saw that game last night and people are looking at Dallas, they have now matched their season total, all-time season total for wins in a regular season. How did this happen?
They came out and balled, and obviously they got the two probably reigning MVPs with Prescott and Elliott on offense. But, you know, they always have a hard...
Rookies.
Both rookies, so it's going to be interesting who gets Rookie of the Year.
Is it good for America to have America's team good? Is it good for football?
It depends. If you go to New Jersey, they may think differently.
People like it at the league. Is that marketing? Is that marketing gold?
Yeah, obviously, if Dallas goes to the Super Bowl, it's great for football. It's great for Dallas. But you know, I have a prediction on who's going to be there. But I'm not thinking.
All right, let's talk about it. Who's in the NFC hunt.
Well, you've got Dallas is at 1, and then you've got Atlanta, Seattle, Green Bay. Well, Green Bay and Detroit play next week, and then, of course, the Giants are in. And, you know, they can always create a havoc when they get in there.
Washington and Tampa also have to win this
week.
What
about Tampa? My husband's from that area. Every year he says they're going to make it to Super Bowl. They haven't in a very long time.
They have a 1% chance of getting to the Super Bowl. Getting into the playoffs.
Getting to the playoffs.
Well, and the Cowboys haven't been able to solve the Giants, who I root for, so we've got to say that. And then let's go over to the AFC, though. New England has clinched. Oakland, Pittsburgh, Houston, Kansas City, a lot of other teams in the mix there.
Yeah, I mean, right now, New England, unless they lose at Miami, they seem to be holding down the fort.
The last dynasty left in sports is New England, and then one of the great stories is the Miami Dolphins. Terrible start, the great finish, first time they've been in the playoffs in years.
Yep, and our guy Mike Tenenbaum's down there, so I was
revamped the whole thing.
That's right, did it all over, and you know what? Good for him and good for them.
So, what's the big prediction? If you had to guess right now.
Well, you know what? I'm going to get ridiculed to death, but I'm just going to say we're back. Third dance, Giants, New England.
Wow. And we'll see if New England can finally win this one. Now, let's talk about the fans. What does Big Blue bring to the table? What is this Big Blue organization?
Well, Giant fans love to travel. They travel well, meaning that if you go onto a road game, you see the other team's fans on the road traveling to see the games. And we provide that service to make it easier for the fan. One key operation, turnkey. Go on our website, bigbluetravel.com. We will be doing playoff trips, finding out where we're going. Hopefully this weekend we'll know where we're going to go, and we'll have a playoff trip online where we provide the travel right to that city. We take them off the bus, bring them to the hotel. We bring them to a party the night before the game with a couple of players. We have a tailgate party, a ticket to the game included, and we sell that package through our website. So evidently, you know, a Giant Super Bowl would be tremendous again.
You know,
against the Patriots.
Got to get another one of these.
That's right.
That thing, that's amazing. Can we get a close-up of this ring?
Yeah, you got to put it on.
But I was at the game when the Jets hosted New England a few weeks ago here, and Brady came back at the end there, and the Patriots fans travel well.
Yes, they
do. They go all around the country.
Patriot Cowboy fans, generally Cowboy fans, Steeler fans, Giant fans, and Raider fans travel very, very well.
It matters more to the league. As much as you like the players, they come and go. The average career is, 3 or 4 years? But the fans don't go anywhere. And that's the key. So that's when people look at this, it's not about the Giants. It's really about what fans will do and what these organizations do to make sure the fan support is supported.
We've been doing it 25 years, and we see grandfathers come with their grandkids, and then their grandkids. It's like it's a family tradition. So that's the family's travel. And,
All right,
And
let's
one
go
of
Big
America's
Blue.
best.
Yes.
Yeah, it's going to be a great end of the season, I have a feeling.
And Rich, you're going to go on the road with them and maybe bring us up close and personal, right?
Yep, and then, in a couple weeks, you and I will be in Houston.
All right, hopefully in the Super Bowl.
That's right, on Fox Sports.
There you go.
Thanks, you guys.
President Obama says America believes in his vision, and he would have beaten Donald Trump.
If I had run again and articulated it, I think I could have mobilized a majority of the American people to rally behind it.
But if he's so good, why have Democrats lost more than 1,000 seats since he took office? We'll debate that. Fair and balanced.
And she's toxic but not dead. Why the internet thinks.
Democrats lost more than 1,000 seats in Congress and state governments all across the country during Barack Obama's presidency. But the commander-in-chief insists he could have won a third term.
I am confident in this vision because I'm confident that if I had run again and articulated it, I think I could have mobilized a majority of the American people to rally behind it.
He could have beaten Donald Trump, while the president-elect quick to fire back on Twitter saying, quote, President Obama said he thinks he would have won against me. He should say that, but I say no way. Jobs, leaving, ISIS, Obamacare, etc. Here to debate Republican strategist David Avella and Democratic strategist Steve Laser. Steve, let's start with you. I mean, how can President Obama continue to say, my policies, he said many times going back to the midterms of 2014, are on the ballot. He said it again in 2016 and lost, and yet now he says, I could have beaten Donald Trump.
Well, he said it in 2012, he won. And look, he's at 56% approval. I think either of the last two Republican presidents would have loved to have had that approval level when they left office. I think, I would be happy to say that all these problems for Democrats in Congress and in state legislatures would go away when Obama left office. I'd be happy to say that not because I dislike him, but I would like to say that those problems are going to go away and we'd be able to do better in the midterms in 2018. That's just not the problem. Democrats have historically had problems in the midterm. I think that's a big reason for losing a lot of these seats. And also we have problems motivating our voters to vote for the state legislature races. I hear a lot of Democrats come up to me and say, I vote for president, I vote for Congress, maybe governor, but I leave the rest of the ballot empty and I undervote. So this is a problem that we're going to have to deal with going forward. It's been 20 or 30 years in the making. I wrote an article about it in 2006. So it's not the president's issue that we've lost all of these seats, definitely.
Well, but David, I suspect you might, as a Republican, wish, even though you want Donald Trump now to become president, another 4 years of Barack Obama, Republicans would pick up even more seats around the country.
Absolutely. The president has said it's going to be his number one priority after his presidency is to work to elect folks to Congress and to state legislatures, which, given his track record, we welcome his involvement in where we now sit. Look, it's going to take a case of amnesia for Americans, given President Obama's policy results and his divisive governing style. It's going to take a severe case of national amnesia to elect someone like President Obama or someone who wants to continue down the path that President Obama has started. And Steve kind of hit on it. Look, the 2018 elections favor Republicans in the U.S. Senate. Right. And you look at 2022 when redistricting will have happened, the states that are going to pick up members of the U.S. House are all in states controlled by Republicans in the state legislature. So we potentially are going to see growing Republican majorities the next couple of years.
Interesting point. Let's look at the numbers, Steve. Democratic seats lost since President Obama took office, 1,030. That's all around the country. And David points out that will affect redistricting at the end of the decade because these are Republicans who are drawing up the lines for the new congressional districts in the House moving into the next decade. I still don't understand how you can say, look, this has been a success for Barack Obama when all around the country, Democrats have been losing seats.
This has been the case really for the last 20 or 30 years. There's no question we have a tremendous amount of challenges that we're facing turning this around. But I think the biggest thing in our favor is Donald Trump and the Republicans taking power. I think the Democrats never do so well as when the country has a chance to see what Republicans are actually like when they're in power. So that's what I think is going to really turn things around for us. I think actually seeing the results. And I'm looking forward to watching the Republicans try to do better than President Obama.
David, let me give you 15 seconds. What about, people think this is a diss from Barack Obama on Donald Trump. What about Hillary Clinton? He's basically saying, I would have been better than her.
Democrats are only now coming to grips with the devastation that Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama have caused to their party. I mean, now you even have the candidates running for DNC chairman all running against what has happened the last couple of years under Barack Obama, in that they have not focused on their farm team operation. They have no rival to go pack out there working to build a team of folks to run for future office.
All right, David, a lot of work ahead for the Democrats, no doubt. We appreciate Steve, David, both coming in.
Thank you.
Speaking of the president-elect, he says the world was gloomy before he won, and there was no hope. And America might agree. The new poll showing just how fed up we are with 2016. And act now, save later. We have the end-of-the-year money moves that'll save you some serious cold, hard cash.